Hello and welcome to Quartzlight, your car brochure channel. In today's Saturday special episode, it's the turn of the special edition Cortina Crusader. Welcome back, and if you're new to Quartzlight, we're a car brochure channel here on YouTube, looking at cars from around the world for the 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s, and sometimes beyond that as well. So if you're interested in cars and car brochures, why don't you consider subscribing? It would really help the channel greatly, and of course it prevents you from missing new episodes. Today is Saturday. We call it the Saturday Special Edition. Every Saturday we look at a special edition version of various different makes and model of car, and today we've arrived at the Cortina Crusader. Now, if you watched yesterday's episode, what we call Ford Friday, we're looking at Ford every Friday, you'll know that we've been looking through this brochure for the full range of Ford Cortina right at the end. In fact, this brochure is actually a brochure that came out after production of the Cortina ended. It's actually dated September 1982. Showing a full range, which we had a look at yesterday. If you missed that, I'll put a bit of a link at the end of the episode. But we skip through the Crusader because, like I say, Saturday's where we look at special edition cars. And this was really the end of the road for the Cortina. All good things must come to an end, of course. And the final Cortina built was, in fact, a Crusader. A really good special edition, really. But in typical Ford terms, lots of different trim levels from the parts been at the end all thrown on this one car, but it sold really, really well. They sold about 30,000 units of these. And this was a great car to buy at the end. It would have been heavily discounted, of course. There are prices at the end of this brochure which we'll have a look at to see what the official price was for the Crusader, although you'll note they've all been scribbled out, basically because at the time the dealership would have said, no, ignore these prices, there's going to be good discounts. And of course the Sierra came out, so they needed to discount them, so you could get anywhere up to 30% off these cars, so they were really a good buy at the end. So the Crusader was really a nice level of trim. Like I say, lots of different trim level bits from various different trim levels of the various different models. There's bits of gear in here, there's bits of GL in there, so you could probably pick this car up probably for less than a super basic Sierra, something like a 1.6L. You could probably buy this for less. Of course, I'm sure a lot of people preferred this because it was quite a shock to the system when the Sierra came out with that sort of jelly mold design. Anyway, let's stop all this waffle and concentrate on the brochure. And at the top here it says Cortina Crusader, impressive livery, impeccable pedigree. And of course the catchphrase or tagline for Ford at the time was, of course, Ford gives you more, and you got this catchy tune on the adverts. Anyway, let's open the brochure up and let's see the first page that shows and introduces this special edition Crusader. And here we go, the Cortina Crusader Saloon. There was also an estate, so we'll have a look at that in a moment. This lovely example, very 80s picture, isn't it? Very 80s fashion. This beautiful example in Titan blue and Strator silver, and that was the really striking part of the Crusader. This nice two-tone colours, but that was very much a Ford thing to do with their special editions around this time, was to do this two-tone colours, and I quite like it, I must admit. What we'll do, we'll look at some of the text, then we'll have a look at some of these images. So even though this Cortina Crusader was a special edition, you did get engine choices all the same. So you could either have it as a lowly 1300 or a 1600 or a lovely 2-litre transmission, 4-speed manual gearbox at a time where we was kind of thinking more about 5 speeds, weren't we really? I think there's also an automatic option. Yeah, there is automatic transmission option on a 1602 litre option at extra cost. Now, I'm not going to read all this because, it kind of like drags on a bit if I read everything here, but gives you a little bit of information about the suspension and steering, rack and pinion, of course. Now, if you do, of course, want to read everything, you can always pause the screen and have a look there yourself. Brakes, nothing unusual there. It's the typical disc and drum setup. So it looks like a slightly different drum size depending if you got the 1300 and 1600 or that 2 litre. We've got sports road wheels, which was a nice little extra to throw on the Crusader, because I did like the sports road wheels. Yeah, they're only steel wheels, but still. And they even threw these nice sort of wheel rim embellishers on there, kind of like what you think of more for like a GL model. Moving down, it gives you some information about the lighting and electrical, and also gives you information about the body. Now, first of all, it starts talking about the 4-door saloon, not the 2-door. Strangely, telling you, you didn't have to have a 2-tone one, although I seem to remember most I saw were 2-tone, but nevertheless, 4-door saloon, all steel welded integral construction, safety glass all round, laminated windscreen, black finish 4-bar louvered radiator grille, bright bumpers and protective inserts with wraparound end caps, body side protective mouldings, bright drip rail and belt rail mouldings with black door window frames, black windshield and rear window inserts, anti-burst door locks with child-proof locks on rear doors, passenger door mirror and remote control driver's door mirror, spare wheel housed in the luggage department, and then it tells you 11.9 gallon fuel tank and locking cap, and then it goes a little bit confusing. It says 2-tone body side with bonnet stripe, but I kind of thought it was implying that was just a single colour, but I don't know. Then it goes on about the 2-tone saloons proper, as above, with black bumpers and a radiator grille, colour matched to the upper body colour. So a little bit nicer, you got a colour matched radiator grille rather than that black finish. 2-tone paint colours divided by the body side protective mouldings. Then we look at the interior, so reclining front seats with adjustment for forward and backwards movements, rear bench seats, 2-tone fabric consisting of dark Durham with light crushed velour, so very nice seats. Seats centre inserts, rear centre armrests on 4-door saloons, front seats with adjustable head restraints, mat pockets and seat valances, doors finished in light crushed velour with wood veneer door capping, so that's wood veneer door cappings would have been very much a gear thing. Carpeted lower sections and mat pockets on front doors, colour keyed cut pile carpet in passenger compartments, boot mat, heater, demister and variable speed fan, centre face level air vents and outboard eyeball face level vents, glove box with lid, front grab handle, 2 rear coat hooks, full centre console including Ford P21 push button radio with front centre armrest and trinket box, PVC gear shift with and handbrake gaiter, ignition oil pressure indicator, brake failure and main beam warning lights, inertia reel seat belts to driver and front passenger seats, illuminated heater controls, ashtray and switches, wood effect fascia, speedometer, odometer and trip meter, fuel and water temperature gauges, instrument panel rheostat clock, 2 speedo wipers with flick wipe control and electric screen wash, cigar lighter, swiveling sun visors and an anti-dazzle rear view mirror. And then we get a recap, kind of like confirming you can get a single or a 2-tone paint finish, obviously a bit extra for that 2-tone, Durham and crushed velour fabric trim, centre console with Ford P21 radio, sports road wheels with rim embellishers, remote control driver's door mirror. And there she is, looking very splendid in that 2-tone colour. The sport road wheels look really nice, 2-tone, and then you get this nice body stripe, and overall the Crusader was a good looking car, but wow, I don't think this image could be anything other than the 80s, a very, very 80s image. And look at that fashion. Glimpse on the inside, and you'll notice this is the automatic extra cost option. But look at that. Wood on the top of the doors there, very much a gear feature. They've robbed to put on the Crusader, which actually really suits the car, I think. But then velour seats just look absolutely lovely. I'm not surprised, it sold really well. And then a glimpse on the inside, wood dash, auto transmission, which is an optional extra. Nice little radio for the time, but you'll notice it's still quite a lowly model, you know. It still hasn't got a rev counter. We've got the clock in the centre there rather than a nice little clock which would have been near the radio. So you always get that with special editions, you know, they give you some, but then you kind of like spot these like little lowly features in it. We do get this nice 4-spoke steering wheel though. Then, as promised, we do get it also in an estate. Yes, the Crusader Estate, a really practical car. It's like the Cortina Estates actually. Such a great load lugger, weren't they? This particular example in lovely crystal green with that same lower body treatment in Strato Silver. And again, you could get this as a two-tone like this or just a single paint colour. Let's start by looking at some of the specs for the estate. And of course the specs are going to be very similar to the Saloon, of course. Main difference really is no 1300, just a 1600 or a 2 litre. Obviously they thought the 1300 was a little bit of a miserly engine to stick in a car that could potentially be lugging lots of things around. Again, 4-speed manual gearbox and an automatic option. And a similar story for the suspension and steering. Brakes, again, the drums being larger on the 2 litre compared to the 1600, wheels and tyres, and lighting and electrical. I'm not going to read all that, but you can, you know, pause the screen if you just want to read all that. And then again, more information about the body, the single tone version and the 2-tone version, very similar to what the Saloon was. Again, when we're thinking about the single colour option, we're thinking a black louvered radiator grille and bright bumpers, so you get the nicer chrome bumpers actually with the single tone version. The 2-tone one having black bumpers but a nice colour matched radiator to match the upper body colour. And then some information about the interior. I'm not going to read all that, it's very much similar to the Saloon, but of course you can pause the screen if you do want to read it word for word. And there she is, the estate version. I do particularly like crystal green. I think it looks very nice. I'm not too sure in this 2-tone colour. Maybe I like it. I think maybe I'd have to get used to it. But this is nice because it really shows off them rim embellishers, doesn't it, on those sports wheels. They really show off very nicely. It does tell us there is an optional extra on this vehicle though. This one's got tinted glass. You would have to pay more for your tinted glass on your Crusader side on view, but really showing, you know, that luggage space and how practical they were. With that hatch up, nice low loading area and plenty of room for you and a larger family, or indeed whatever you want to use your Crusader for, moving furniture, etc, etc. A very practical car is what we're saying. If you notice the kind of like the fog light there, kind of like tacked on as an afterthought, but of course this was an older model by now, and even at this time it wasn't unusual to have sort of fog lights just tacked on the bumper. And then a rather nice final shot of it here in the countryside for whatever reason, I'm not sure. Nice little wiper on the tailgate there. Overall, I think it's a nicely styled car. About make out the badge in this particular example is the larger engine 2 litre Crusader by the side of it, and then near the forward badge is kind of like a little bit of a Crusader style badge. And then we get the price range. So your most basic one was of course a 1.3 Saloon in the single tone paint, not metallic, starting off there at £5,160. If you wanted a 2-tone version, you know, extra couple of £100 there by looks of it. Most expensive version was a 2 litre estate in 2-tone for £6,545. But you'll notice the dealer has scribbled this out. No sir, you won't be paying this today. We're going to discount it. And like I say, anywhere up to 30% discount of that is tended to be what you got at the end, so they could move these cars out, because there were still a lot available. Even though production had ended, they had to still get rid of a lot of these Crusaders, so they really had to discount them to move them on. But like I say, the Crusader really sold well, sold around about 30,000 units, so it did very well indeed. But it was nice you had a little bit of alternative if you found that Sierra a little bit too out there with its new design. And of course, you could probably get a very nice Crusader for less than a super basic 1.6L Sierra, I would imagine. Now, if we just compare that with the standard Cortina prices, or at least official prices, because again, the dealers scribbled them Cortina prices on, depending on what they had in the forecourt, I guess, and then they would have heavily discounted the standard models as well. So if we think the Crusader, let's pick a nice model that you probably went for. So like a 2-litre Saloon Crusader, two-tone, was about £5,900, and you can see there even a 2-litre GL was 6,383, so it was very competitive. It had them bits of a gear on there with that nice wood capping, but of course a gear 2-litre was like £7,228. So, but you can certainly see how the Cortina Crusader was very cleverly priced, really, overall, wasn't it? The model I picked up, like I say, it was one of the more expensive ones, actually. The 2-litre Saloon, 5,935. Like I say, less than a GL, and with that two-tone colour, it must have really stood out and attracted a lot of people, and it was nicely spec'd. So once again, Ford very cleverly pricing these, but you didn't have to spend that much. You could get your 1.3 for £5,160, which wasn't much more than a 1300L. So it was good value for money for sure. But that, of course, is before the salesman scribbles the prices out in front of him and says, no, Mrs. Smith, that's not what you're going to pay. You can get one of these today for, and like I say, anywhere up to 30% discount. And I'm sure, like I say, that tempted a lot of people. So there we go, the Ford Cortina Crusader, kind of the farewell car, the run-out model of the Cortina before we move to the Sierra. But like I say, some people still would have been happy to buy one of these rather than a Sierra, because that new Sierra design was hard to take for traditional Ford Cortina buyers. Thank you so much for watching today. If you do remember these cars, please do jot it in the comments. I always love reading those very much, so I do appreciate everyone who does actually comment. Many more episodes coming in the near future, so please don't forget to like and subscribe, and of course have a great rest of your weekend if you are watching this on Saturday. Anyone else who's just stumbled on this episode, I am going to link a little bit of a link at the end of this episode, so you can actually see the brochure full and see the rest of those different models you could buy at the end. It's kind of like seeing what sort of specs you could get at the end of the life for the Cortina. But thank you for watching. All the best. Take care.